Hi everyone! It's the last week in September, the last week of our stay here on Kodiak Island. In the background is the fishing boat Northwest Odyssey. She's still here. The delivery didn't take place and we're really kind of disappointed about that. But I'll go ahead and tell you what we have been up to. As I mentioned in the previous episode, we have been coping with water shortage issues and energy problems. After the making of that episode, we had some light rains, which helped alleviate the problem. But it was only after the heavy rain earlier this week that things have actually gotten back to normal as far as the water issues are concerned. The springs are flowing again, and when an earlier storm coincided with the spring tide, we had a surprise pink salmon run. Within a few days, the stream started to run low, but hopefully by that time, the salmon had spawned and left their eggs buried in the gravel of the stream. Once salmon spawn, their flesh deteriorates and they die. There were numerous dead salmon in the stream, but they have since been washed away. Blondie now has free run of the place, as we no longer have to worry about her catching salmon. Living off the grid, there is always something that needs attention, and this year we helped with a lot of day-to-day maintenance projects and getting ready for the coming winter. When we arrived, John was in the midst of power washing the house. Once John was finished with the washing, all the old caulking was removed and new caulking applied. While working on the second story, Lee and John discovered that caustic components of creosote had leached down the chimney and eaten into portions of the metal roof. On a windy day out in the strait, and while we were enjoying the calm of being in the lee of the mountain, they affected the repair. Unfortunately, other more pressing projects and bad weather prevented us from finishing the project of staining the house. Day-to-day projects included hauling out the whaler to install a new starter for the motor and then splashing it again. It was always interesting to watch the process, and even though it looks precarious, no one got wet. Occasionally, we would cross the strait to Spruce Island and the native village of Uzinki, where John and Christy collect their mail. Christy would sometimes sell apples, and we could eat lunch at the senior center. This part of Alaska was originally colonized by Russia, and one finds constant reminders of the Russian influence. From the harbor, the Russian Orthodox Church is a prominent site, and Spruce Island is home of a monastery. On the south end of the island, one finds Monk's Lagoon and a chapel built by the monks to commemorate Saint Herman, who in the early 1800s cared for and protected natives from colonial excesses. On nearby Nelson Island is a nunnery, and both the monastery and the nunnery receive pilgrims. Just a few days ago, we received a call from Island Air in Kodiak that the generator head, ordered over a month ago, would finally be on the morning flight to Uzinki. We headed across the strait, tied up at the ferry pier, and I had a challenging climb. Our friend Jean picked us up, and we drove across the island to the airstrip. Lee and John had made this same trip the afternoon before, only to find that the heavy package had been bumped due to passengers and a large quantity of mail. We waited while the cabin was emptied, wondering if the package had been bumped again. Finally, the long-awaited package was contained in the forward hold. Driving back across the island, we were surprised to see how much the wind had picked up on Marmot Bay.
It's picked up just in the time we've been here, hasn't it?
Needless to say, it was a much bumpier ride back to Sailboat Cove than our earlier crossing to New Zealand. Back at Sailboat Cove, the generator head was unwrapped. The diesel generator, a Kubota, had supplied reliable power until the electrical portion had burned out. A replacement generator head from the Kubota dealer would cost several $1,000s, and Lee and John found a possible replacement head through Harbor Freight at a little over $300. It is not an exact replacement, but the guys felt they could adapt the wiring connections. Unfortunately, this is another project we will have to leave for John, as the head took more than a month in shipping and arrived too late for Lee to make more than a start at the job. For now, John and Christy will rely on a gas-driven generator that barely meets the household demands. At the same time as the arrival of the generator head, the long-awaited lithium-ion batteries arrived. They were trucked to Seattle and then traveled by barge to Anchorage and on to Kodiak at a shipping cost of over $1,000. Having items shipped to Alaska is not cheap. We picked up the batteries along with other supplies on a trip into Kodiak. The old lead-acid batteries that could barely hold a charge were removed.
Oh, there goes my shoe. There goes your shoe. Okay. Don't worry about it. 1, 2, 3.
There was a delay in the new installation, however, as the acid overflow in the battery box had to be neutralized. We were surprised to discover the spilled acid had eaten and burned the underflooring black. So it always turns into a bigger job than planned.
A 15-minute job. No, this was supposed to be a half-a-day job.
A new floor was cut and laid. After changing the Outback charging system to the different charging parameters required by lithium-ion batteries, the batteries were installed. John is using Valence lithium batteries, and after installing them, he found that he still had extra space in the battery box, while at the same time increasing usable battery capacity. John and Christy are very pleased with the performance of their new batteries, and that left us with power to run a freezer, and that meant time to go fishing. Join us in the next and last episode from Sailboat Cove as John and Christy go fishing, the weather gets rough, and the crew of La Brisa goes back to California. So until then,